And I mean, the trombone world seems to be really close knit, and obviously that was, you know, a key factor to you feeling supported as a musician during your illness. And as you navigated through that, I mean, did you find that there might have also been a sense of almost fragility in that, you know, we know that there's always people lining up to take your place, as it were. Did you feel a slight responsibility that you had to work, you had to keep going, or was that just simply a necessary thing that you felt you wanted to do as opposed to needed to do?
Yeah, it's a funny one, that one, because I think I didn't really consider um, people taking my place. I didn't ever think about that. I think what was going on in my mind was because my specialists, I think it was after my first initial chemotherapy, I'd lost my hair for the first time. It was 6 months long. And then I think I was in my 20s, and it's quite a common cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, in your 20s and 30s and 50s to 60s.
Mm,
Um, and the prognosis is really good for the primary treatment. Um, and because that failed, um, I mean, the chances of it failing are really, really slim, but I was one of
mm,
those people. And then my prognosis suddenly started taking sort of a skydiving route. And I remember having a really tight hug from my chemotherapy nurse. And she said, "I'm just so sorry." I said, "It's okay, it's fine. We've got more options." But I didn't realize that my prognosis was now starting to really get bad straight after the first treatment. And I went through so many other treatments after that. I
mm,
exhausted all chemotherapy, all radiotherapy, stem cell transplants. I exhausted so many avenues. Um, but I think it was actually my specialists repeatedly telling me that I wasn't going to make it. Um, that kind of that they kept telling me that I wasn't getting my head around that, but I think I was, sort of subconsciously. And I think I was just living my life as best I could, in whatever time I had left. And I was just trying to do as much as I could. I was traveling around the world touring. I was doing all sorts of amazing tours, amazing recording sessions, and just loved every moment of it. And that's all I was focusing on, and just enjoying myself. And I wasn't really thinking about the big picture of, I don't know, someone might take my place if I'm
mm,
not
mm.
well enough for this bit. I didn't even have time to think that. I think I was just trying to live as much as I could.
Yeah, and I mean the whole process of being a musician, especially one like yourself who's touring and all of, you know, what that entails, it's quite physical. I mean, you're constantly packing things up and unpacking and moving around and queuing up and, you know, always on the go. And that's before even the playing starts. And you do wonder whether this whole combination where the body is physically, you know, active and your mind is active, and as you say, you're totally focused on something else, you know, whether this was such a powerful scenario for your well-being and ultimately the goal in getting over such a devastating situation, really.
Yeah, I think the touring and like you say, everything that comes with it just took my mind off it all. It
Mm,
absolutely did. I mean, on tour with Seal, I toured with Seal for 6 years, and initially I was allowed to book the horn section, and luckily some of my very closest best friends came on tour with me. And so touring the world with your best friends, it doesn't get better than that.
incredible.
And we had such amazing times, and I think I also need to thank all of them for getting me through
Mm.
it. And there were even times post bone marrow transplant, right at the very end, when I was trying to get back on my feet again, and I was still touring with Seal, and he kept employing me, which was amazing. And there was an American tour, and I was like, this is the first American tour, the whole of America, from East Coast right across on tour bus across the West Coast on Route 66. I've got to do this. I've got to do this tour. And I was only about 8 or 9 months through my bone marrow transplant. And normally you're not allowed to travel abroad for the first year at least. And in my case, with a donor bone marrow transplant, your blood type has got to change over to your donor's type. So initially I was O negative, and my bone marrow donor was A positive. And normally it takes just a few months for your blood type to change over. But mine, for some reason, didn't change over for 2.5 years. So in that time, I couldn't produce my own red blood cells. I couldn't produce any blood. So I had to keep going back to hospital every 2 weeks for 2.5 years to have blood transfusions, just topping me up. And throughout all that time, they were really confused why it wasn't changing. They tried all sorts of things, including chemotherapy of all things, just to try and get it to change over. And so we started this American tour, and it's like, how am I going to do it? There's no way I can do this tour on just one topping up of blood. And so Seal said, look, I'll just fly you home whenever you need. On a day off, I'll fly you home. We'll bring someone else out if need be to cover you for a couple of gigs, and then you can fly back out again. Oh my God. And he did that. So I remember we sort of started East Coast, all the way down the East Coast, got as far as Chicago, and that was it. My blood count went down to about 6, and I was struggling to walk upstairs and everything. The oxygen that's needed to go around your body to move, I couldn't get my breath. I couldn't do anything. So I flew back home again. They got someone else out for 2 gigs, I think it was. I got topped up with blood. They topped me up as high as they could, and flew me back out again. And it's just amazing that I've had people support me like that throughout my illness when they could have easily just got someone else.
Isn't that extraordinary? And all credit to Seal and his team, you know, for yeah, well, just being incredibly supportive. I mean, it's beyond supportive. It's just fantastic that spirit exists, really. So amazing.